Good morning. In today's video, we'll be talking about the various separating methods which are employed in a laboratory. Now, as we all know, there are three types of things: elements, compounds, and mixtures. Elements are the substances in which they exist in the most pure form, such as gold. There are 288 elements in the periodic table, and they can be have been classified into various groups and periods based on their chemical and physical properties. Now, what are compounds? Compounds, as you can see, a example includes such as carbon dioxide. Now, carbon dioxide is an accumulation of carbon atom and two molecules of oxygen. So, a compound is always formed by a mixture of two or more elements. Similarly, in a mixture, what is a mixture? A mixture is a mixture is a combination of two or more elements or compound. For example, in a mixture, you could just whenever you dissolve table salt in water, so the compound sodium chloride has been mixed in the compound water, and thus a mixture can be formed. Now, an element basically can exist in either a single state or it can exist in diatomic state. As we studied earlier, that there are specific group trends, such as in group 7, that all the molecules exist diatomically, such they are known as halogens, such as iodine, chlorine, fluorine, bromine. Now, if we come to how we can separate the solids from the respective mixtures, they have written about a magnet, how the magnetic interaction can remove the iron chips, since magnets attract the iron filings from a mixture of sand, and the sand remains because it is not a metal. The second most employed method is sublimation. What happens in sublimation is that when we heat a mixture of solids, one of them is undergoes melting, whereas the other one is converted in the form of a gas. Now, if we talk about the third method, the solvent extraction. In the third method of solvent extraction, when we use a solid which is water soluble, while the other is insoluble, for example, a sand and a salt mixture, whenever the mixture is placed in a substance such as a beaker or another substance, the materials are separated according to their boiling points. What happens is that the one which has a lower boiling point will obviously evaporate and later be extracted in the form of crystals. Now, these crystals can be either be dried in a heat oven, or they can be even dried by pressing them within layers of filter paper. Now, if we talk about the different types of solution, a concentrated solution is a solution in which there is large amounts of solute, whereas a dilute solution is a solution which has large amounts of solvent in it. Now, what is a saturated solution? A saturated solution is where the maximum amount of solute has already been dissolved in it, and no more amount of solute will dissolve in the solvent, no matter how much of stirring you do. For example, even in everyday life, if you take the example of tea and you basically take sugar to sweeten it, after about 3 to 4 teaspoons of adding sugar to it, the sugar will not dissolve and it will float on top of it. Why does this occur? This occurs no matter how much you stir it. The amount of solute and the solvent particles which can mix with each other have mixed, and the remaining cannot be mixed. Now, as we told you previously as well, that the how whenever to compare in distillation or fractional distillation, we use the help of temperature and the use of different solubility of substances to extract them. Therefore, in the process of simple distillation, which I will now show you, this is the most important question asked in exam. They frequently basically ask you to label two arrows which have been shown over here, the cooling, that you need to know that the water always cools in over here, and the water always goes out over here. Similarly, a thermometer is needed to basically just assess the temperature, and similarly heat is applied. You can see this mixture of water and ethanol. So as we all know that water has a boiling point of 100 degrees, whereas ethanol has a boiling point of 78 degrees. Therefore, ethanol will evaporate in first initially, and water will follow later. So hence, as ethanol evaporates over here, it goes into this condenser, and then it is extracted out in the ethanol. This is the ideal method for distilling seawater. How because the similar strategy is being employed to remove the salt, which is NaCl, from the seawater, so that drinking water can be obtained. Now, filtration. In filtration, there is always an insoluble solid and a liquid mixture. Filtration is ideal to separate out mixtures which are which are insoluble from each other by removing the precipitate. Now, another method of removing mixtures is by using a separating funnel. A separating funnel is used for immiscible liquids. Immiscible liquids include oil and water. As we know that oil and water are basically, one is polar and the other is non-polar. You'll be told the concept of polarity and non-polarity later. However, you need to know that polar substances which are like to each other, they mix with each other, whereas whenever polar and non-polar substances are mixed with each other, they do not dissolve in each other. Therefore, when we mix the oil and water with the two, the more denser substance, which is oil, will settle at the bottom, whereas the lesser dense material will always be collected at the uppermost surface. This technique is also employed in the case of fractional distillation. Now, in fractional distillation, in the additional thing which is being used is the use of a fractionating column. And the difference between distillation and fractional distillation is that fractional distillation is used for those liquids which are miscible with each other. Now, however, the concept is the same, that the difference in temperature is used to separate out the different liquids. Now, the important use and everyday use of fraction distillation is for crude oil. You will study later in organic chemistry how different substances of, for example, alkanes and alkenes, how they are used in petroleum. But you need to know that the petrol you basically fill up in the cars, it is a refined product of the crude oil. You cannot place crude oil and use it for fuel. However, there the crude oil is further refined into different substances, for example, gas and petrol and chemicals, as well as jet fuels and lubricating oils. The respective substances are separated out by the process of fractional distillation. The substances which have a greater boiling point basically collect at the bottom, whereas the ones which have a lesser boiling point and are light in weight, they are collected at the top. Therefore, the respective substances are easily separated out from each other. Now we study the process of chromatography. You need to first remember this formula, that the RF value is the answer of the distance traveled by the spot or the solute covered over the distance traveled by the solvent. In the To calculate the RF value, we use the help of take the help of chromatography. Now you need to know the clinical and uses of chromatography. Chromatography is used in worldwide to take out in dope tests so that the illegal use of drugs by athletes can be ruled out in their from their blood. So how the method works is that they take a filter paper and on the baseline they place a number of dyes. So afterwards, after a time of 5 to 10 minutes, when they compare that which two substances have traveled the same distance, with whichever two substances have traveled the same distance, it means that they are present in the mixture, and thus prohibited substances such as boosters, or I would say that performance enhancers, if used by the athletes, can be easily detected. Now, this wraps up our video on chromatography as well as the different separation methods. I hope you liked the video. Thank you.